Welcome to podcast number 55 for Thanks for Your Service. Our focus is on historical topics relating to the Australian military. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Just search for Thanks for Your Service. Our website is www.thanksforyourservice.net, and you can also email us at info@thanksforyourservice.net. The Park Orchards Chalet lies empty in the northeast Melbourne suburb of Park Orchards. Originally built as a country clubhouse in 1928, during World War II the Australian Army soon requisitioned the chalet and surrounds. In 1942 the chalet became the administrative headquarters of the Land Headquarters Heavy Wireless Group. Its signallers, numbering up to 400, set up camp at the nearby oval. During the war, the chalet and grounds were used as a transmission and receiving station, and later trained agents setting up clandestine networks for espionage and intelligence as the School for Eastern Interpreters. Recently, I travelled to Park Orchards and met with David McNiff, the president of the Park Orchards Ratepayers Association. David tells us about the history of the chalet and its sad state of affairs today. We're in Park Orchards and I'm with David McNiff, who's the president of the Park Orchards Ratepayers Association. Where is Park Orchards?
We're an eastern suburb north of Ringwood and south of Warrandyte.
Now, you're the president of the Park Orchards Ratepayers Association. Tell us a little bit about the association and what we're here today to talk about the Park Orchards Chalet. So first of all, what is the association?
It was formed in 1964. There is an area called the 100 Acres, which is unique bushland here. It was bought by a housing developer in the 60s, and they were going to subdivide it, and the local rallied round and formed the Park Orchards Ratepayers, and with federal, state and local government, they purchased the 100 acres, and that is now a wildlife bush. There's kangaroos, wombats, echidnas, all sorts of bird life there. This is in the heart, or not in the heart, part of Manningham, where people 10k away or 5k away are living in high-rise apartments, and yet they got natural bush. But you would get down in Gippsland or something like that. You can, once you're 100 metres in there, you could be up in the Great Divide.
Yeah, now, we're sitting in a coffee shop and we're literally, I think, 200 or 300 metres away from the actual Park Orchards Chalet itself. Tell us about the chalet, David. What's the history of the place?
Okay. What happened was, originally, as you mentioned, it got its name from orchards. And in the 20s, it was purchased by the Edmonds family, one of the jewellers. They wanted to bring a country club to Australia, like the American. And the idea was that there was going to be a 9-hole golf course with a clubhouse. And if you purchased a block of land, you got lifetime membership to the golf club. The area, being orchards and that type of environment, there were two surveyors who were proteges of students of Walter Burley Griffin. They were involved in Canberra. They came down here and did the layout and also designed the clubhouse, the chalet. And the road we're sitting along here with the shops wasn't here. The post office east of me was the pro shop, and further down was the first tee, and not far from the chalet was the ninth tee, and it was a golf club.
So we're here at a coffee shop and we're sitting on the actual golf course itself. When was the chalet then built?
It was started in 28 and finished in 29. Now, what happened was the Depression hit, so land sales literally went to zero. There were a lot of people that owned blocks, some had built. Up until the war, there was roughly 50 houses here. At the outbreak of the war, the chalet had been used. There was a residence there with a family living there. It was taken over by the Australian Army. There was a huge radio tower installed, and there were troops under canvas on the oval, and there were machine gun pillboxes round the chalet. Messages were taken from that. The radio transmitted to the Pacific area, and messages were taken then into St Kilda Road. When the Americans entered the war after Pearl Harbor, it was further expanded, and there were messages from the White House and the Pentagon, and motorbike riders took it into the Windsor for MacArthur.
Do we know why Park Orchards was chosen?
Remoteness. It also had a link to Coldstream. Now, Coldstream was then a whistle stop on the highway. There was also a receiver there. So there was a link from the chalet to Coldstream. The reason was it was remoteness. And also it's one of the high spots around Melbourne too. Part of the radio masters up at Gold, near the IGA at Goldfields, just out of Warrandyte. Mm-hmm. They use it for their hoses, to dry their hoses. There's still the mooring blocks around the chalet, concrete blocks set in the ground that held the wires to stabilise the thing. Yeah.
And what happened to the chalet then post-war?
Well, then it was used as a reception area. At one stage, the police had it for their blue light disco for teenagers. It was run as a reception area. They extended in the 50s an outer area or more, and it was used for weddings, engagements, that sort of thing. Right up until when the developer, and I think it was about 2007, it was still running receptions, and a lot of locals would go there because it was the only restaurant around here. Yes, there's ones up in Warrandyte and North Ringwood, but for the locals. There was a big housing boom here in the 60s. As I said, there wasn't much prior to the war, but in the 50s you got some people, but early 60s there was a huge sway of people came in. And it was also a local meeting place too. We didn't have the areas. The school started in the late 60s, Pops, the primary school. St Anne's came later. So it was the only meeting place.
What's the status of the chalet today?
Okay, as I said, I think it was around about in 2010. It was bought by a company that has nursing homes, and it was in 2010 they got a permit to build a 91-bed nursing home. Now the locals said, "Hey, this is out of character." We don't really know what the intentions are of the developer. It is, after all, a private property, and they can do what they like. They had to retain, one of the conditions of the permit was they had to retain the chalet, and I'd suspect that still. It does have a heritage listing. With the council.
So that was one of my questions. It is heritage listed, so they can't, in theory, knock it down.
Yes, but the problem is the council. There is a clause called demolition by neglect, and there's been nothing done on it since then.
Pora's website is pora.org.au. That's pora.org.au. And you can find out more information about the chalet on our Facebook page. That's the podcast for today. We're keen to hear your feedback, and if you're listening to us via iTunes or other podcast apps, please leave us a review. Your review helps others find our podcast. You can help support this podcast via Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee. The links are on our website and Facebook page, and your support helps us with the production of this podcast. Thanks for listening.